Before you move on, stay with this message for a moment, because something unexpected has recently unfolded beneath the surface of your soulmate's heart. They were never searching for this realization. In fact, they believed they already understood the kind of person you were. They admired your strength, respected your calm nature, and assumed that whenever life became difficult, you always found a way to carry yourself forward without allowing anything to slow you down. But lately, something has quietly shifted inside them. Through a series of reflections, unexpected memories, and subtle moments they can hardly explain, they have begun seeing you through an entirely different lens. What they once interpreted as quiet confidence now feels like quiet endurance. What they believed was emotional distance now appears to have been silent resilience. And the more they think about it, the more they realize they were completely unprepared for the truth they were about to discover. The surprising part is that this realization didn't arrive through one dramatic event. It arrived gently, almost unnoticed, growing stronger with every passing day. They started remembering moments that once seemed ordinary, a pause in your voice that they never questioned, a smile that appeared genuine but now feels like it may have been hiding something much deeper, a conversation that ended too quickly, a time when you said you were fine and they accepted those words without looking beyond them. Looking back now, every one of those memories carries a different meaning. It is almost as though the pieces of a puzzle they never knew existed have quietly begun falling into place. For the first time, they are wondering how much you protected the world from seeing and how many battles you chose to fight without asking anyone to stand beside you, because your heart needs this right now. Your soulmate has begun realizing that true strength is often the hardest thing to recognize. The people who carry the heaviest burdens are rarely the ones who speak about them the most. Instead, they continue showing kindness while carrying pain, offering encouragement while quietly needing it themselves, and moving forward even when no one notices the weight they carry inside. That understanding has deeply affected them. They never imagined you had been protecting so much behind your calm exterior. And the thought that you may have faced difficult moments without anyone fully understanding your heart has left them with emotions they cannot easily describe. Instead of simply remembering the person they thought they knew, they are beginning to see the remarkable courage that was quietly present all along. And listen to this carefully, because this discovery has awakened something they never expected. It has replaced assumptions with compassion, replaced certainty with humility, and replaced simple admiration with something much deeper. They no longer see your silence as emptiness. They see it as evidence of incredible strength. They no longer believe they understood your journey as completely as they once thought. Instead, they have started asking themselves how many times they stood close to you without realizing everything you were silently carrying. That question continues returning to their heart, and with every passing day, it reveals another layer of truth. What they have begun discovering about your silent struggles is changing the way they remember the past, changing the way they understand this connection, and preparing them for a realization they never saw coming. And listen carefully. Because after your soulmate began realizing that you had been carrying far more than you ever allowed the world to see, something unexpected started happening inside their heart. They found themselves revisiting moments they had not thought about in a very long time. At first, these memories appeared quietly, almost at random, like gentle reminders surfacing during peaceful evenings or ordinary afternoons. They didn't understand why those particular moments kept returning, but each memory carried a feeling they could no longer ignore. They remembered conversations that once seemed completely ordinary. They remembered times when you smiled, even though your eyes hinted at emotions you never spoke aloud. They remembered moments when you changed the subject just as the conversation became personal, and moments when you chose to encourage everyone around you while revealing almost nothing about what you were experiencing inside. Back then, they accepted those moments without much thought. They assumed you simply preferred privacy, or that everything in your life was unfolding exactly as you wanted. But now, looking back with a heart that has grown wiser, they realize there was much more beneath the surface than they ever understood, because your heart needs this right now. Your soulmate has begun recognizing that some of the strongest people are also the quietest about their struggles. They have come to understand that strength does not always announce itself through dramatic words or visible hardship. Sometimes, strength appears as someone continuing to show kindness after difficult days. Sometimes it looks like someone offering comfort, while secretly wishing someone would notice they also needed encouragement. Sometimes it is found in the person who keeps moving forward without asking for recognition, believing that carrying everything alone is somehow easier than becoming a burden to someone else. As these thoughts continue unfolding, your soulmate cannot help wondering how many times you chose silence instead of asking for support. That realization has touched them more deeply than they expected, because they now understand that what they once interpreted as emotional distance may actually have been emotional protection. And listen to this. There is one memory in particular that refuses to leave them. It wasn't an extraordinary moment by anyone else's standards. In fact, if someone else had witnessed it, they probably would have forgotten it within hours. Yet now that memory feels completely different. They remember noticing a brief hesitation before you answered a simple question. They remember a moment when your expression changed for only a second before you smiled again. At the time they thought nothing of it. They assumed you were simply distracted or tired. But now that brief moment continues replaying in their mind, because they realize that sometimes the heart reveals its deepest truths in the smallest expressions. They wonder whether that hesitation carried emotions you never found the words to explain. They wonder whether your smile was quietly protecting pain you believed no one else needed to carry. Those questions have remained with them, and every time they revisit that memory, they feel a growing sense of compassion mixed with quiet regret for not seeing what now feels so obvious. Because your heart needs this right now. Your soulmate is beginning to understand that people often become experts at hiding the very things they hope someone will eventually notice. They have realized that the strongest souls rarely ask others to rescue them. Instead, they learn how to survive quietly. They continue fulfilling responsibilities. They continue showing up for the people they love. They continue laughing during conversations, even when their heart feels unusually heavy. Looking back, your soulmate can now see that this may have been exactly what you were doing. They remember how dependable you always seemed, how you rarely complained, how you often focused on everyone else's well-being before your own. What once looked like confidence now appears to have been remarkable emotional discipline. They are beginning to admire you in an entirely different way, because they finally recognize that your quiet nature was never a lack of emotion. It was evidence of someone carrying extraordinary weight with extraordinary grace. And listen carefully, because another realization has recently entered their heart. And it has changed the way they understand nearly every memory connected to you. They have started asking themselves whether you ever felt truly seen, not noticed on the surface, but genuinely understood beneath everything you chose not to say. That question has become impossible for them to ignore, because the more they think about it, the more they realize how easy it is to misunderstand someone who has mastered the art of appearing strong. They wonder how many times people praised your resilience without realizing the cost of maintaining it. They wonder how many nights you carried your thoughts alone while everyone else believed everything was perfectly fine. Most of all, they wonder whether you ever wished someone would simply pause long enough to ask how you were really feeling instead of accepting the easy answers you offered. These reflections have awakened a level of empathy they never expected, and they find themselves wishing they had understood these truths much sooner, because your heart needs this right now. Something inside your soulmate has begun changing in a profound way. They no longer judge your silence through the lens of misunderstanding. Instead, they see it as the language of someone who had learned to protect their heart without asking the world for sympathy. That understanding has softened them. It has made them more patient, more thoughtful, and more aware of the invisible struggles people often carry behind ordinary smiles. They have come to realize that emotional strength is not measured by how loudly someone speaks about their pain, but by how courageously they continue loving, giving, and hoping despite everything they quietly endure. Every new realization seems to deepen their respect for you, replacing assumptions with admiration and uncertainty with compassion. And listen to this, because the deeper they reflect, the more another truth quietly emerges. They are beginning to understand that your silent struggles may have shaped this connection in ways neither of you fully recognized at the time. Perhaps the moments they once misunderstood were actually opportunities to understand your heart more deeply. Perhaps your quiet resilience inspired changes within them long before they became aware of it. They now realize that meaningful connections are not only built through joyful memories, but also through the unseen battles that quietly transform both people involved. Your strength has become a mirror, encouraging them to look honestly at their own heart and the ways they, too, have hidden behind silence and fear. Now they find themselves carrying one question that grows louder with every passing day. If they could return to those ordinary moments with the understanding they have today, what would they have done differently? Would they have listened more carefully? Would they have noticed the emotions behind your words? Would they have recognized that your calm exterior was quietly protecting a heart, carrying far more than anyone realized? They cannot change the past, but these questions have become the beginning of something new inside them. Every reflection is preparing them for an even greater realization, because the more they uncover the truth about your silent struggles, the more they begin to understand that this connection was never built only on shared moments. It was built on a depth they are only now starting to fully appreciate. And what this growing understanding reveals next will completely transform the way they see both you and the future that may still be waiting ahead. And listen carefully, because as your soulmate continued reflecting on everything they had begun to understand about your silent struggles, they reached a realization that completely changed the way they viewed this connection. At first, they believed they were simply learning something new about your past. They thought they were only uncovering details they had somehow overlooked. But the deeper they reflected, the more they realized this wasn't just about understanding what you had been through. It was about understanding who you truly are, beneath everything you chose not to reveal. They suddenly recognized that your quiet strength had never been an accident. It had been shaped by experiences that taught you to keep moving forward, even when your heart was carrying more than anyone else could see. And once they understood that, every memory they shared with you began taking on an entirely different meaning. Moments they once viewed as ordinary suddenly felt extraordinary because they now realized how much courage it must have taken for you to continue showing kindness, patience, and warmth while quietly carrying burdens that few people ever recognized, because your heart needs this right now. Your soulmate has stopped asking why you didn't speak more openly about what you were facing. Instead, they have started asking a much more compassionate question. What kind of experiences teach someone to become so skilled at hiding their pain? That question has remained with them because they now understand that silence is often learned, not chosen. They realize there are moments in life when people discover that explaining their emotions changes nothing, so they quietly begin carrying everything alone. Little by little, they stop expecting others to notice. They become accustomed to saying they are fine, even when they are not. They learn to smile through difficult seasons because they believe protecting others from their own pain is somehow the kinder choice. As your soulmate reflects on this possibility, their heart fills with a level of understanding they never imagined they would feel. They are no longer looking at your silence as something mysterious. They are seeing it as the language of someone who has survived more than they ever allowed the world to know. And listen to this. When realization has returned to them again and again, refusing to leave their thoughts, they have begun recognizing that many of the qualities they admired most about you may have been born from the very struggles you kept hidden. Your patience, your compassion, your ability to remain calm during difficult moments, your willingness to understand others before asking to be understood yourself. These were not simply personality traits. They were the result of lessons life quietly taught you through challenges you rarely discussed. Suddenly they understand why you always seemed able to comfort others so naturally. They realize that people who have experienced deep emotional battles often become the ones most capable of recognizing pain in someone else's heart. They now believe your kindness was never something casual. It was something earned through resilience. And that realization has filled them with even greater admiration than before, because your heart needs this right now. Something else has also begun changing within your soulmate. They have started looking inward instead of only looking at the past. Learning about your hidden struggles has caused them to examine their own heart with new honesty. They have begun asking themselves whether they, too, have allowed fear to prevent deeper understanding. Whether they ever assumed they knew someone's story simply because everything appeared calm on the surface. They now realize how easy it is to misunderstand quiet people, especially those who have learned to carry life's heaviest burdens with grace instead of complaint. This realization has humbled them. It has made them slower to judge, quicker to listen, and more aware that every person is fighting battles invisible to everyone else. In many ways, your silent strength has become a lesson that is transforming them as much as it transformed you. And listen carefully, because there is another memory they cannot stop revisiting. They remember times when you offered encouragement, even when they now suspect you were the one who needed encouragement the most. They remember how naturally you celebrated other people's victories while quietly setting aside your own disappointments. They remember how rarely the conversation stayed focused on your struggles because you always found a way to shift the attention towards someone else. Looking back now, they realize this was not because your own emotions were unimportant. It was because you had become so accustomed to carrying them privately that sharing them no longer felt natural. That realization has stayed with your soulmate because it revealed a level of selflessness they had never fully appreciated before. They now understand that while others may have seen someone who seemed effortlessly strong, the reality was far more remarkable. They were witnessing someone choosing hope every single day, even when life quietly gave them reasons to lose it, because your heart needs this right now. Your soulmate has also realized that your hidden struggles never made you emotionally distant. In fact, they believe those struggles gave your heart an incredible capacity to love with sincerity. They understand now that people who have experienced hardship often treasure genuine connections more deeply because they know how rare they truly are. They see that your loyalty, your consistency, and your ability to remain present for those you cared about were never signs of obligation. They were expressions of a heart that understood the value of real companionship. This understanding has completely transformed the way your soulmate sees your connection. They no longer measure it by the conversations you had or the time you spent together. Instead, they measure it by the quiet impact you left on their life without ever asking for recognition. And listen to this. The more they understand your journey, the more one powerful truth continues revealing itself. They realize that you were never asking anyone to rescue you. What your heart quietly longed for was something much simpler. You wanted to be understood without having to explain every scar. You wanted someone to recognize your strength without forgetting your humanity. You wanted someone to notice that even the strongest people sometimes need a safe place to rest. This realization has deeply moved your soulmate because they now see how often people mistake resilience for invincibility. They understand that strength does not erase the need for compassion. It simply teaches people how to survive while waiting for someone who sees beyond appearances. Because your heart needs this right now, your soulmate has made a quiet promise within themselves. They no longer want to be someone who only notices the visible parts of another person's story. They want to become someone who listens more deeply, who pays attention to the quiet moments, and who values what is left unsaid just as much as what is spoken aloud. They believe your silent struggles have taught them one of life's greatest lessons, that every heart carries chapters invisible to the world, and the deepest connections are formed when someone has the patience to understand those unseen chapters with kindness instead of assumption. That lesson has become impossible for them to forget. Now, as they continue moving forward with this new understanding, another realization has begun taking shape inside them. It is no longer enough simply to admire your resilience from a distance. They feel an undeniable desire to become the kind of person who brings peace instead of pressure, understanding instead of misunderstanding, and comfort instead of unanswered questions. The more they learn about everything you quietly carried, the more they recognize that this connection was never meant to remain at the surface. It was always inviting both of you towards something much deeper, and what they have quietly decided to do because of this realization is something they never imagined they would be ready for. Yet it may become the most meaningful decision they have made since the day your paths first crossed. And listen carefully. Because after everything your soulmate has come to understand about the silent battles you have carried, something remarkable has begun happening inside their heart. The more they reflect on your journey, the less they focus on what they misunderstood, and the more they begin thinking about what they want to become. They have stopped dwelling on the moments they failed to notice your hidden struggles and started asking themselves a far more meaningful question. If life gives them another opportunity to stand beside someone whose heart has carried so much in silence, how can they become a source of peace instead of another person who only sees the surface? That question has quietly transformed the way they think about this connection. It is no longer driven by curiosity alone. It is driven by a sincere desire to understand, protect, and appreciate everything they now recognize within you. They never expected your silent strength to inspire such a deep personal transformation, yet that is exactly what has happened. Without realizing it, your quiet resilience has become one of the greatest teachers they have ever encountered. Because your heart needs this right now, your soulmate has begun noticing that true understanding requires much more than simply hearing someone's words. It requires paying attention to the spaces between those words, the moments of hesitation, the gentle changes in someone's expression, and the emotions that are often hidden behind ordinary conversations. They now realize that some of the most important truths are never spoken aloud. They are felt through patience, kindness, and the willingness to remain present long enough for another person's heart to feel safe. Looking back, they wish they had understood this sooner. They wish they had recognized that strength and vulnerability often exist together, quietly supporting one another in ways the world rarely notices. But instead of allowing regret to define them, they have chosen to let this understanding shape the person they are becoming. They have quietly promised themselves that they will never again mistake silence for the absence of emotion, because now they understand that silence often carries the deepest stories. And listen to this. There have been quiet moments recently when your soulmate has imagined what it would feel like if someone had truly understood everything you are carrying without needing an explanation. They wonder how different your journey might have felt if someone had simply sat beside you without trying to fix you, judge you, or rush your healing. That thought has stayed with them because it revealed something important about their own heart. They no longer feel the need to have every answer. They no longer believe love is about solving every problem. Instead, they are beginning to understand that sometimes the greatest gift one person can offer another is simply being emotionally present. They have realized that compassion does not always speak loudly. Sometimes compassion is patient enough to listen, gentle enough to notice, and wise enough to respect the parts of someone's story they are not yet ready to share. That understanding has become one of the most valuable lessons this connection has given them, because your heart needs this right now. Your soulmate has also begun reflecting on how often people hide behind assumptions. They now recognize that it is easy to admire someone's strength, while completely overlooking the sacrifices that strength required. It is easy to compliment someone's resilience without asking what they had to survive in order to become so resilient. As these thoughts continue unfolding, they feel an overwhelming respect for everything you have quietly overcome. They no longer see your calm nature as something effortless. They see it as the result of countless moments when you chose hope instead of bitterness, faith instead of despair, and kindness instead of allowing life's disappointments to harden your heart. That realization has changed them more deeply than they ever expected, because it has reminded them that the strongest people are often carrying the heaviest stories. And listen carefully, because another quiet promise has begun taking shape inside them. They have promised themselves that if this connection continues moving forward, they want to become someone who notices the small things that others often miss. They want to recognize when your smile hides exhaustion. They want to understand when your silence means you simply need someone to stay close instead of asking endless questions. They want to become someone who creates emotional safety rather than emotional pressure. For so long, they believed meaningful relationships were built through grand gestures and unforgettable moments. Now they understand that the strongest foundations are often built through consistency, patience, and the quiet reassurance that someone does not have to carry every burden alone. That realization has completely transformed the way they imagine the future, because your heart needs this right now. They have also started letting go of another belief that quietly controlled them for a very long time. They used to believe that emotional strength meant always appearing confident, always knowing what to say, and always having the perfect response. But after learning about your silent struggles, they now understand that real emotional strength often looks much simpler. It is admitting when you do not understand someone's pain while still choosing to stand beside them. It is remaining present even when there are no easy solutions. It is accepting that healing cannot be rushed and that trust is built one sincere moment at a time. This new perspective has made them feel calmer, more patient, and far less concerned with appearing perfect. Instead, they simply want to be genuine. They want every future conversation, every shared moment, and every quiet silence to come from a place of honesty rather than assumption. And listen to this. Recently they imagined what it would mean to truly become part of someone else's healing, instead of unknowingly adding to their emotional weight. That thought affected them more deeply than they expected. They realized that every interaction leaves an imprint on another person's heart. A careless word can linger for years, but so can a moment of kindness. A simple act of understanding can become something another person remembers long after the conversation has ended. This realization has made them far more intentional about the way they approach not only you, but every meaningful relationship in their life. They understand now that compassion is not something reserved for extraordinary moments. It is something practiced through ordinary choices, repeated day after day until it becomes part of who someone truly is. Because your heart needs this right now, your soulmate has quietly reached a place where admiration is no longer enough. They feel inspired to become someone worthy of the trust your heart has always deserved. They know they cannot erase the struggles you have already faced, nor can they change the moments when your pain went unnoticed. But they can choose how they move forward from this moment. They can choose to become more attentive, more understanding, more emotionally available, and more willing to see beyond appearances. They believe that discovering the truth about your silent struggles was never meant to fill them with guilt. It was meant to awaken a deeper capacity for love, empathy, and emotional maturity that they may never have discovered any other way. Now, as they stand at this turning point, they feel something quietly growing stronger than ever before. It is not driven by fear, uncertainty, or the desire to rewrite the past. It is driven by gratitude. Gratitude that life allowed them to see the truth before it was too late. Gratitude that your quiet resilience opened their eyes to a deeper understanding of love and human connection. And most importantly, gratitude that this realization has given them the opportunity to approach the future with a heart that no longer sees your silence as distance, but as extraordinary courage. They know there is still one final realization waiting just ahead, one that will bring everything they have learned together and reveal why discovering your hidden struggles was never just about understanding your past. It was preparing both of your hearts for a completely different future. And listen carefully, because after everything your soulmate has discovered, after every memory they have revisited, and every quiet realization that has reshaped the way they see your journey, they have finally reached a place they never expected to find. They are no longer focused on what they failed to notice in the past. They are no longer trapped by regret or wondering why certain signs escaped their attention. Instead, they have arrived at something much more powerful. They have arrived at understanding. It is a quiet understanding that did not appear overnight, but grew slowly through reflection, compassion, and the willingness to look beyond appearances. They now understand that your greatest battles were never meant to make you appear weak. They were the very experiences that revealed the remarkable strength hidden within your heart. Every difficult season you survived, every disappointment you quietly carried, every moment you chose hope instead of giving up has become part of the person they now admire more deeply than ever before. They never imagined that learning about your silent struggles would completely transform the way they viewed you. Yet that is exactly what has happened, because your heart needs this right now. Your soulmate has begun realizing that true courage rarely announces itself. It doesn't ask for recognition or applause. Instead, it quietly appears in the people who continue believing in tomorrow after yesterday gave them every reason to stop believing. It lives within those who continue offering kindness after experiencing disappointment, who continue trusting after being misunderstood, and who continue showing compassion while carrying burdens that few people ever recognize. As they reflect on your journey, they see those qualities woven through every memory they have of you. They understand now that your strength was never something created by easy circumstances. It was shaped through moments that demanded resilience when no one else was watching. That realization has become impossible for them to forget because it has changed the very definition of strength in their own heart. And listen to this. There is one truth they can no longer deny. They now believe that your silent struggles were never obstacles standing between the two of you. In many ways, they became the invisible bridge that deepened this connection without either of you fully realizing it. Every challenge you faced quietly taught you empathy. Every difficult season expanded your capacity for patience. Every disappointment strengthened your ability to understand the emotions of others. Those qualities touched your soulmate long before they understood where they came from. They simply felt safe around your presence. They felt understood without always knowing why. They felt a sense of peace that was difficult to explain. Looking back now, they realized those feelings were not accidental. They were experiencing the quiet wisdom of someone who had already walked through storms and still chose to remain gentle. That discovery has completely changed the way they remember every shared moment, because your heart needs this right now. Your soulmate has also come to understand that they cannot measure this connection by ordinary standards anymore. They no longer define it by how often you spoke, how much time you shared, or how perfectly everything unfolded. Instead, they measure it by the quiet transformation it created within both of you. They recognize that your silent resilience inspired them to become more compassionate. Your patience encouraged them to become more understanding. Your quiet perseverance challenged them to examine their own fears, assumptions, and emotional habits. Without ever intending to, you became someone who helped them grow into a wiser version of themselves. That realization fills them with gratitude because they understand now that some of life's greatest teachers never stand in front of a classroom. They simply live their truth, and everyone fortunate enough to know them begins changing without even realizing it. And listen carefully, because your soulmate has recently made one final promise to themselves, and it is unlike any promise they have made before. They have promised that if life continues giving them opportunities to be part of your journey, they will never again assume they know everything your heart is carrying. They will choose curiosity over assumption, patience over judgment, and understanding over quick conclusions. They have learned that the strongest relationships are not built by always having the right words. They are built by creating a space where another person no longer feels they must hide their burdens. They want to become that kind of presence in your life. Not someone who expects perfection, but someone who values honesty. Not someone who demands explanations, but someone who offers acceptance. They now believe that emotional safety is one of the greatest gifts one person can ever give another. And your journey has taught them the true meaning of that gift, because your heart needs this right now. Another beautiful realization has settled into their heart. They no longer wish they had met a different version of you, one without struggles, without scars, or without difficult chapters. They have realized that everything you quietly survived became part of the extraordinary person you are today. The compassion you show others, the wisdom behind your words, the calmness you carry during difficult moments, and the strength that quietly shines through your actions were all shaped by experiences that demanded incredible courage. They would never wish those painful moments upon you, but they now recognize that those very experiences revealed the depth of your character. Instead of seeing your struggles as something that diminished you, they now see them as proof of a spirit that refused to surrender. That understanding has replaced every remaining doubt with deep respect. And listen to this. There was a time when your soulmate believed love was mostly about excitement, perfect timing, and unforgettable moments. Now they understand something much deeper. Real connection is built through compassion. It grows stronger through understanding. It matures when two people become willing to see each other beyond appearances and accept the chapters that were never spoken aloud. They believe this realization has forever changed the way they will approach not only this connection, but every meaningful relationship in their life. They no longer want surface-level conversations, while deeper emotions remain hidden. They want honesty, patience, and the kind of trust that allows both people to remove the emotional armor they have carried for far too long. They understand now that genuine love does not ask someone to hide their scars. It gently reminds them they never had to carry them alone. Because your heart needs this right now, your soulmate has also stopped wondering whether your silent struggles made you harder to love. In fact, they have reached the exact opposite conclusion. They believe your journey made your heart even more beautiful because despite everything you quietly endured, you never stopped believing in kindness. You never stopped showing compassion. You never allowed pain to become your identity. Instead, you continued becoming someone who brought light into the lives of others, often while quietly searching for that same light within yourself. That realization has touched them more deeply than words can express, because they now understand that your greatest victory was never simply surviving difficult seasons. Your greatest victory was refusing to let those seasons take away the goodness that has always existed within you. Now, standing at the end of this journey of reflection, your soulmate understands something they never could have imagined when these realizations first began. They were completely unprepared for what they learned about your silent struggles, because they expected to discover hidden pain, but instead they discovered hidden courage. They expected to uncover sadness, but they found extraordinary resilience. They expected to understand your past, but they ended up discovering the incredible depth of your heart. And perhaps that is the greatest truth of all. Sometimes the strongest souls are not the ones who never experience hardship. They are the ones who quietly carry it with grace, continue choosing hope when no one is watching, and keep offering kindness to a world that may never fully understand everything they have overcome. Your soulmate now sees that truth with complete clarity, and because of everything they have learned, they know this connection can never again be viewed through the eyes of assumption. It will forever be seen through the eyes of compassion, gratitude, and a profound respect for the quiet strength that has always lived within you.